Hey everybody, I'm Mike with Budget Guns and Gear Reviews, and this is The Right of the People, where we use the first to defend the second every Friday night at 7 p.m. Eastern. So uncover your keyboards and fire up your fingers. It's time to join the conversation. Hey everybody, I'm Mike with Budget Guns and Gear Reviews, and this is The Right of the People. It is Friday. What date is it? Friday, March 26th, 2021. And as always, we got some stuff to talk about. But before we get into that, I would like to welcome the irascible yet lovable Squibload to the show. How you doing, Squib?
Doing all right today. Thanks for the invite.
Hey, no problem, man. You are always welcome in my house, brother. Speaking of always welcome in my house, we got a lot of people out there in the chat. The Tactical Pickles out there, Calaveras 32 Special. Mike is there. He says he is not first. Jason Stewart is here, as is Thermo Redneck with a paycheck. Defense Dad also says he's not first. Gun Level Grandpa's out there. How you doing, Buck? Jason Stewart's here. How are you, sir? Who else we got? Mystic Guns. Hello, hello. If you're out there and you haven't said anything, sound off in the chat. That way I can say hi and I know you're out there. Don't hesitate to let us know what your opinion is. Remember, this is a conversation. This is not just me talking at you. This is me talking with you. I may not get to every comment out there in the chat, but I do try to get the ones that jump out at me. If you're not watching this live, if you are in fact looking at this in the replay, sound off in the comments below. Let me know what you're thinking. Because you know what? You could very well have something that, as a matter of fact, probably found something that I'd missed and didn't consider in the conversation, and I want to hear it. Even if it's not something with which I agree, I'm okay with that as long as it's presented respectfully and not, in kind of a douche fashion. Because I don't care if you disagree with me. That's fine. I like to take my ideas and bounce them off yours. That way we have to take a look at things and see if I need to make an adjustment and then go from there. So Thank you for in advance for the input there. We got J Monty 1738 is sounding off. How you doing? Thermo Redneck says, "Jump out at you, boo! Did I scare you?" Yes, I am terrified. Absolutely terrified. Speaking of terrified, we got some good news and some bad news coming out of the federal courts this week. Let's, what do you want, Squib? Do you want to start with the good news or the bad news first?
Oh no, if it bleeds, it leads. Go with bad news.
If it bleeds, it leads. Alrighty. You have been corrupted by the lamestream media. So let's go ahead and lead with the bleeder here. Because it's not good. It's not good. Ninth Circuit Rules 2A doesn't protect right to bear arms. This is a piece from bearingarms.com by Cam Edwards from March 24th. On Wednesday afternoon, an en banc panel of the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals handed down a decision that's sure to get the attention of the Supreme Court, declaring that the state of Hawaii's requirement that residents hoping to openly carry a firearm first prove to the state that they have an urgency of need and are of good moral character and are engaged in the protection of life and property. The opinion in Young versus Hawaii, taken in conjunction with the Ninth Circuit's decision a few years ago in a case called Peruta v. San Diego, means that the largest appellate court in the country has declared that the average citizen has no right to bear arms at all. Instead, the state has the privilege and power to grant certain people the ability to carry a firearm in self-defense. I'm going to quote the summary of the court's decision in Young in its entirety. The en banc court affirmed the district court's dismissal of an action challenging Hawaii's firearm licensing law, Hawaii Revised Statutes 134-9A, which requires that residents seeking a license to openly carry a firearm in public must demonstrate the urgency or the need to carry a firearm, must be of good moral character, and must be engaged in the protection of life and property. Appellant George Young applied for a firearm carry license twice in 2011, but failed to identify the urgency or the need to openly carry a firearm in public. Instead, Young relied upon his general desire to carry a firearm for self-defense. Both of Young's applications were denied. Young brought a challenge to Hawaii's firearm licensing law under the Second Amendment and the Due Process Clause of the 14th Amendment. The district court upheld Hawaii's statute. The en banc court first held that the scope of its review would be limited to Young's facial challenge to HRS 134.9. There was no need to determine whether Hawaii County properly applied 134.9 because Young did not bring an as-applied challenge. The en banc court noted that this court has previously held that individuals do not have a Second Amendment right to carry concealed weapons in public. Peruta v. County of San Diego. The question presented in this case, accordingly, was limited to whether individuals have a right to carry weapons openly in public. To answer that question, and consistent with the Supreme Court's decisions on District of Columbia v. Heller and McDonald v. City of Chicago, the en banc court first considered whether Hawaii's law affects conduct protected by the Second Amendment. After a careful review of the history of early English and American regulation of carrying arms openly in the public square, the en banc court concluded that Hawaii's restrictions on the open carrying of firearms reflect long-standing prohibitions and, therefore, the conduct they regulate is outside the historical scope of the Second Amendment. The en banc court held that the Second Amendment does not guarantee an unfettered general right to openly carry arms in public for individual self-defense. Accordingly, Hawaii's firearms carry scheme is lawful. The en banc court rejected Young's argument that HRS 134.9 is invalid as a prior restraint because it vests chiefs of police with unbridled discretion to determine whether a permit is issued. Joining its sister circuits, the en banc court held that the prior restraint doctrine does not apply to Second Amendment challenges to firearm licensing laws. The en banc court also rejected, as premature, Young's due process argument that HRS 134.9 does not provide adequate process to challenge the denial of a carry permit application. The en banc court noted that Young did not seek review under HRS 91.9, therefore bringing suit. So, Hawaii has not yet denied him the opportunity for appellate review. Because Young has not actually been denied a hearing, his procedural due process claim was speculative, and there was no need to reach it. Dissenting, Judge O'Scanlan, joined by Judges Callahan, Ikuda, and R. Nelson, would hold that both HRS 134.9 and the 1997 county regulation destroy the core right to carry a gun for self-defense outside the home and are unconstitutional under any level of scrutiny. Judge O'Scanlan stated that the majority holds that while the Second Amendment may guarantee the right to keep a firearm for self-defense within one's home, it provides no right whatsoever to bear, i.e., to carry, that same firearm for self-defense in any other place. In his view, the majority's decision undermines not only the Constitution's text, but also half a millennium of Anglo-American legal history, the Supreme Court's decisions in District of Columbia v. Heller and McDonald v. City of Chicago, and the foundational principles of American popular sovereignty itself. Dissenting, Judge R. Nelson, joined by Judges Callahan and Ikuda, concurred with Judge O'Scanlan's dissent, concluding that Hawaii Revised Statute 134.9 violates the Second Amendment. Judge R. Nelson wrote that the majority erred, not only in holding the statute facially constitutional, but also in rejecting Young's as-applied challenge. He also wrote separately to highlight the brazenly unconstitutional County of Hawaii regulations applying to HRS 134-9, stating that there should be no dispute that any law or regulation that restricts gun ownership only to security guards violates the Second Amendment. This is an absolutely bizarre decision by the Ninth Circuit. In order to reach their conclusions, the judges in the majority decided that laws in place in Hawaii before it ever became a state take precedence over the clear and unambiguous language of the Second Amendment, which declares that the right of the people to both keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. According to the Ninth Circuit, those long-standing traditions in Hawaii law matter more than the Constitution itself. As Judge Darmot O'Scanlan declared in his powerful dissent to the majority opinion, the Second Amendment to the United States Constitution guarantees the right of the people to keep and bear arms. U.S. Constitution Amendment 2. Today, a majority of our court has decided that the Second Amendment does not mean what it says. Instead, the majority holds that while the Second Amendment may guarantee the right to keep a firearm for self-defense within one's home, it provides no right whatsoever to bear, i.e. to carry, that same firearm for self-defense in any other place. This holding is as unprecedented as it is extreme. While our sister circuits have grappled with and disagreed over the question of whether public firearms carry falls within the inner core of the Second Amendment, we now become the first and only court of appeals to hold that public carry falls entirely outside the scope of the amendment's protections. In so holding, the majority reduces the right to bear arms to a mere inkblot. The majority's decision undermines not only the Constitution's text, but also half a millennium of Anglo-American legal history, the Supreme Court's decisions in District of Columbia v. Heller and McDonald v. City of Chicago, and the foundational principles of American popular sovereignty itself. While the decision by the Ninth Circuit is absolutely atrocious, the timing couldn't be better. On Friday of this week, the Supreme Court is expected to take up a case in conference called New York State Rifle and Pistol Association versus Corlett, which challenges New York State's May issue licensing scheme for carry licenses, which, by the way, as a complete digression, I haven't been able to find anything on what happened with that today, so that'll probably be for sometime next week. Which challenges New York State's May issue licensing scheme for carry licenses, and thanks to the Ninth Circuit's decision, there's now an even more compelling reason for the court to accept a carry case. It could be NYSPRA versus Corlett, or SCOTUS could hold off a few more weeks until the Young case arrives on its doorstep. But there is now a clear conflict on the right to bear arms in the various appellate courts, and that greatly enhances the odds of the court taking at least one of these cases in the very near future. If and when that happens, expect Democrats to once again call for the nuclear option on the filibuster and threaten to pack the Supreme Court full of anti-gun justices. We first saw those threats in 2019 when SCOTUS accepted a case challenging a New York City law prohibiting the transfer of lawfully owned firearms, but the court ultimately declared that case moot after the city changed the law before oral arguments were held. Now SCOTUS has not one but two opportunities to take a case dealing with the right to bear arms in self-defense, and Democrats are sure to respond with more threats of court packing in return. And as we talked about earlier in the week, and we'll talk about later tonight, they're threatening to put the kibosh on the filibuster anyhow. So there you have it. The Ninth Circuit said you do not have a right to carry a firearm, period. That is, in fact, a privilege granted to you at the whim of whatever elected or appointed official decides it. What do you think, Squib? Are they full of shit?
So were they actually quoting some traditional law or whatnot from back when Hawaii was not part of the United States of America?
I believe so. And yes,
so by their own,
go ahead.
By their own logic, shouldn't we cast off Hawaii and just have 49 states then? Because apparently, if they don't want to get with the program, then they're not part of the country. I
would say yeah, but militarily, I guess we need the base out there, right? Calaveras says, didn't SCOTUS rule in Heller that the second protected an individual right? Well, yes. Yes, it did. He also says SCOTUS has proven it's scared of gun cases. Yes, they have. Hopefully, with the way the court is constituted now, it might take one of these cases up and decide on the behalf of the Constitution, but we'll see. And if they do,
I doubt it.
If they do, as the article pointed out, the Democrats will be threatening to pack it anyhow. You don't think they'll take it up, Squid?
No, they've let us down consistently, so why change?
Yeah. Vanessa Kitty's talking about the Supreme Court hearing the one concerning grabbing guns just because you went in for observation. Yes, the Supreme Court is going to hear that case, which, if I'm not mistaken, I have on my stack of stuff, as Rush would call it. May he rest in peace. Even though I don't actually have a physical stack of stuff. I have a listo crap. Well, with his wife, which caused a heated argument. Coniglia went to the bedroom and came back with a pistol, set it on the table, and told his wife to shoot me and get me out of my misery. When the stunt failed to stop the argument, Coniglia decided to take a drive to cool off. The drive didn't work, and the argument resumed when Coniglia returned home. This time, his wife decided it was time to cool off and left the home to stay the night in a hotel. The next day, she called the house but didn't receive an answer. Concerned, she called police to ask for a wellness check on Coniglia. When officers arrived, they spoke to Coniglia on the back deck of the home, writing in an incident report that he seemed normal and calm for the most part. But the incident report also noted that Coniglia told officers that he would never commit suicide, even though officers never asked him any questions about his risk of suicide, violence, or history of firearm misuse. The voluntary nature of Coniglia's admission caused them to encourage him to go to a local hospital for a psychiatric evaluation, even though police admitted they did not consult any specific psychological or psychiatric criteria or any medical professionals for the decision. Coniglia initially refused the request for a mental health screening, insisting that it was none of the officers' business. He only agreed to it when officers promised his guns would not be seized while he was gone. But the officers did seize Coniglia's guns after he left the home, even falsely telling his wife that he had agreed to the seizures, prompting her to lead officers to the 2 handguns the couple owned. Rookie numbers right there. We got to pump those up. Coniglia was immediately discharged from the hospital, but he only regained possession of his firearms after filing a civil rights lawsuit against police. Police argued that they did not take Coniglia's guns because of an imminent emergency, but instead used a narrow exception to the Fourth Amendment called community caretaking to justify their actions that day. The community caretaking exception, originally created by the Supreme Court for cases such as removing inoperable cars from the highway, doesn't address expansions of the exemption in cases of private homes. But the First Circuit U.S. Court of Appeals upheld the seizures as reasonable under the community caretaking exception, even though it admitted the doctrine doesn't reach outside the motor vehicle context, is ill-defined. But the decision extended the reach of the exception into private homes, ruling that police did not exceed the proper province of their community caretaking responsibilities. Now the case will be heard by the Supreme Court, where attorneys for Coniglia argue extending the community caretaking exception to homes would be anathema to the Fourth Amendment because it would grant police a blank check to intrude upon the home. A joint amicus brief filed by the ACLU, the Cato Institute, and the American Conservative Union agreed, saying that in jurisdictions where the community caretaking exception has extended to homes, that everything from loud music to leaky pipes has been used to justify warrantless invasion of the home. When every interaction with police or request for help can become an invitation for police to invade the home, the willingness of individuals to seek assistance when it is most needed will suffer, the brief argues. In a separate amicus brief, the Institute for Justice argued that expanding the community caretaking exemption to private homes to allow warrantless entries into people's homes on a whim would invoke the arbitrary looming threat of general writs that so incited the framers, which would undermine the right of the people to be secure in their homes. The Fourth Amendment protects our right to be secure in our property, which means the right to be free from fear that the police will enter your house without warning or authorization, said Institute for Justice attorney Joshua Wyndham. A rule that allows police to burst into your home without a warrant whenever they feel they are acting as community caretakers is a threat to everyone's security. Police have to meet certain criteria in order to get a warrant to come into your home and search for and seize property for a damn good reason. It is a horrific invasion of privacy, invasion of the sanctity of your home, and abridgment and infringement upon your Fourth Amendment rights for police to just decide that, you know what, under these circumstances, we can go ahead and lie and deceive and do whatever we want to come in and take your stuff. That's, you want to talk about a slippery slope. You know, I'm not going to argue whether or not they were justified in this particular case. I don't think they should be able to do it at all without a damn warrant. Because if we allow them to do it here, we're going to allow them to do it with the next, and we're going to allow them to do it with the next, and before long, they'll be just boom, boom, boom. Yeah, your grass is too long. We got to come in and search your house to make sure you have lawnmowers and stuff. Because, you know, it's in the best interest of the community. It'll get that ridiculous. Because tyrant's going to tyrant. And if you let them tyrant just a little bit, they're going to tyrant a lot. I don't know. Am I off my nut, Squib?
So that story, or not, I guess I shouldn't say story, but that incident that you described, that's not a gun control issue. That's not a law enforcement issue. That's a marital issue. He needs to divorce that bitch.
Well, there's that. But, you know, the marital, the lack of wedded bliss there isn't really the issue. It's the police lying about first telling him, no, we're not going to take your guns, and then telling the wife that they had to.
Police would have never been there if she had never called them.
Well, there's that.
I understand the police overstepped their bounds, and that, yeah, if they can use this, then they could use anything, and that's not right. I'm not saying that none of that exists there, but there's the underlying issue. She called the police. You ever call the police on me for anything, you're going to get served with papers. End of story. If you ain't man enough to tell that to your woman, what the hell are you doing being married? This ain't about control or dominance or misogyny or anything else like. This is common fucking sense. I don't care if you're scared. I don't care if you're upset. I don't care if you're. Don't you ever call the police. You can divorce my ass. You can make me sleep on the couch. You can throw me out of the house. I don't give a shit. I'll go move. I'll get myself an apartment. I'm out. Okay? But don't you ever call the police, because once you involve the police, they fuck up everything.
That's 3.
They're another department in the government that likes to fuck up everything they get involved in.
Damn, Squib. That's 4 of them.
I'm just giving some advice out there to the guys who don't have, what it takes to say, look, I love you and I want to spend the rest of my life with you, but don't you ever do something so stupid. Don't ever do something so stupid, because they ain't worth keeping, guys. They are not worth keeping, because they're going to call on a wellness. They're going to call, you name it. You name it. And guys have to be scared too. If they're divorced or if they break up with their girlfriend or whatever it is, she'll call them up. And if you live in a state with a red flag law, or if we all end up with red flag laws, we're all going to be screwed, because there's going to be somebody out there with an axe to grind, and it's bull.
That's why red flags are horrific, because they can be abused just like that. Got some new people out there not new people, but new tonight. We got M. Gabriel here, Vanessa Kitty's here, Andrew Faulkner's here. Who else came in? Seven Wonders is here. Jacob S. is here. Who else? Master Decoy 1976. That is definitely a new one on me. Welcome, welcome. Mike Warhorse is back. Good. Glad to see you. Rob, New York Outcast, is here. Says that old time. The original time. Yeah. Vanessa Kitty says, you got a problem if you're in a relationship and you try to hit each other, go move somewhere else. Yeah, no kidding. Pickle says, not saying Squib is wrong. He's just very animated about it. New York Outcast says, Squib can sleep in my basement for a while, but he's got to be buying his own Cheetos.
Shit.
No free Cheetos for Squib. So there we have 2 court cases that, one went against the Second Amendment. We got one that's pending, that's really a Fourth Amendment case, but it involves the Second. And now we have this one out of the Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals that went the way of the Second Amendment. This is a piece from American Military News. U.S. Appeals Court rules bump stock devices are not machine guns. The U.S. Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals ruled on Thursday that bump stock accessories cannot be considered machine guns, and thus not subjected to the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives ban. On December 26, 2018, the ATF classified plastic bump stock accessories as machine guns defined in the Gun Control Act and National Firearms Act, despite them having no ability to fire on their own. The move came after former President Donald Trump's February 20, 2018 memo ordering the Attorney General to develop the ban, which was spurred by reactions to the deadly October 2017 Las Vegas shooting carried out using bump stocks affixed to rifles. The district court erred by finding that the ATF's final rule, which interpreted the meaning of a machine gun as defined in 26 U.S. Code 5845B, was entitled to Chevron deference, the Sixth Circuit ruling said, in reversing the district court's decision. And because we find that single function of the trigger refers to the mechanical process of the trigger, we further hold that a bump stock cannot be classified as a machine gun because a bump stock does not enable a semi-automatic firearm to fire more than one shot each time the trigger is pulled. By the way, for those who don't know what the Chevron deference is, it is a legal doctrine from a case involving Chevron Company and the EPA, where the court ruled that because the EPA was a subject matter expert in that area, the environmental stuff, that their opinion on an interpretation of the law and or regulation should be given more weight than someone else's who was not a subject matter expert. Thus was born the Chevron deference. However, I read this ruling, and the Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals said that in their ruling, which I highly encourage you to find and download and read. It's like 20 pages, but if you're kind of geeky about shit like this, it's really interesting. And anyhow, the Sixth Circuit Court said that Chevron does not apply in this case because it has long held, and I believe they said the Supreme Court held, that you do not apply Chevron in a criminal matter, which the ATF's reinterpretation of existing law and redefinition of machine gun without the legislation, without the legislative branch making changes, imposed criminal penalties on people. Therefore, Chevron does not apply because, well, it's the court's job to interpret law. It is the legislator's job to make law, and it is the executive branch's job to enforce the law, not interpret it and not make it. So the ATF, according to the Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals, overstepped their bounds, and thus Chevron does not apply, which was freaking awesome. And then they went to say, as this article said, that the ATF's interpretation of it was completely wrong to begin with. Freaking great. The ruling comes 2 years after the ATF's ban went into effect on March 26, 2019, illegalizing an estimated 500,000 bump stock accessories owned by Americans. The case was filed by Gun Owners of America, Gun Owners Foundation, the Virginia Citizens Defense League, Matt Watkins, Tim Harmson of the Military Arms Channel, and GOA's Texas Director, Rachel Malone. Today's court decision is great news and told gun owners what they already knew, GOA Senior Vice President Eric Pratt told American Military News. We are glad the court finally applied the statute accurately and struck down the ATF's illegal overreach and infringement of gun owners' rights. In 2010, ATF had originally deemed bump stocks different from machine guns and unable to be subjected to the same regulation as machine guns. Unlike the internal mechanisms of a machine gun that permit high rates of automatic fire in rapid bursts, a bump stock is a plastic accessory that is affixed externally to a semi-automatic gun. Without changing the internal components, a bump stock uses the gun's recoil to then bump the gun back against the user's finger, causing another round to fire. A bump stock does not change a semi-automatic gun's ability to shoot one bullet per trigger pull, whereas a machine gun fires a rapid burst of bullets per single trigger pull. Instead, a bump stock enables the trigger to be pulled quickly, simulating a higher rate of fire than the user can typically achieve with the unaided action of their finger. The U.S. Supreme Court had refused to hear two separate appeals in the ATF's bump stock ban in early 2019. So what they've done is they also said, the Sixth Circuit Court did, that the ATF's assertion that the fact that the user being necessitated to apply forward pressure on the forend of the rifle didn't mean anything, because all they had to do was physically pull the trigger once with their finger, and then they were using recoil energy for each subsequent pull of the trigger. They said that because all they had to do was pull the trigger once, that meant it was a machine gun. And the court, and I believe rightly, said that it doesn't matter what the user's actions are. What matters is the internal function of the rifle. So because as this just said, the internal function was not changed, it is still the rifle's action is semi-automatic regardless of what the user's action was. Brilliant, awesome, freaking great. I think it's wonderful. So now what they did was they remanded this back to the lower court. They said, listen, you refused to grant an injunction. This is bullshit, because you said that this case would not win on its merits, so you didn't grant the injunction and pretty much dismissed it. They said, no, you will go back and hear the case on its merits. So now it has to be heard again in the Sixth Circuit on its merits, which, given that the three-judge panel here of the Sixth did this, it'll probably win on its merits. So then, of course, the feds will have to decide whether or not they take it to SCOTUS. So we'll see how this goes. But so far, right now, this is a big win. And no, folks, I don't know if anybody who turned in or destroyed or lost in a boating accident or whatnot, their bump stocks can pull them out of wherever they might be or might not be found again, or whether they'll get compensation or be able to sue the ATF, or whether the manufacturers who disposed of millions of dollars of inventory will be able to sue the ATF. I don't know any of that at this point, because this still isn't over. This is a battle one, not the campaign. I know, Squib, that your opinion of bump stocks is meh, don't care, it's a toy. But do you think that the ATF overstepped its regulatory authority here?
Yeah, and I even wrote a letter the first time around. Just because I think they're stupid toys doesn't mean that I don't think that you should be allowed to have a stupid toy. You want a stupid toy? Have a stupid toy. I don't care. The attitude of the people
freaking
that
awesome.
I've read the comments from online or heard on live shows or in their videos talk about the bump stocks, they're about as dumb as Glocktards, really. And they're part of the reason these things got, restricted the way they did. They don't want to admit it, but they're part of the reason. When your argument for your Second Amendment rights is simply you want to have a toy, even though that's not what the Second Amendment is about. And that's some people's attitude about that stuff. So yeah, I push back because you're not really representing the community very well. The fight isn't over. GOA put out a video about this today, and this is just a step in the right direction, but it's not over yet. And if they do win it, it's going to set precedent for some of the other garbage that the ATF has been trying to do. But at no point did I say, yeah, they should take the bump stocks. At no point did I go, I support this garbage. Now, I didn't write a letter the second time around. And the first time around, I wrote a letter. I didn't sign that chain letter bullshit. I actually wrote a letter. I didn't swear in it. I didn't make any threats. I didn't do any of the things that some of these loudmouths on YouTube did, because TGC did a show about this, and they were looking into some of the the things that were submitted from people that weren't just signing a chain letter. And there were people threatening the government and swearing and doing all this. Do you think that's really
just
helps?
stupid.
Well, this is what I mean. These bump stock owners shot themselves in the foot, literally. And the second time around, I go, this is bullshit. I'm not doing a second one. I did one. So I'm being totally transparent with you guys.
I did one both times.
I don't want to see anything restricted. I don't want to see anything. Shall not be infringed means shall not be infringed.
Good.
And although there have been times where I've talked about compromise, where we do something that doesn't affect us, but they think it does, and then we get a bunch of stuff back, nobody seems to want to listen to that because they're too busy, once again, making videos and whining about their toy, acting like a child, throwing a tantrum. So I don't get behind people like that. Just like there's other groups within the gun community or the Second Amendment community, because they are two separate things, that I don't get behind and support some of their actions and whatnot. And I know there's people, oh no, we've all got to be the same. No. I'm just don't even go there with me. But as far as this, I think it's a step in the right direction. I just don't think you should be cracking open the champagne too soon.
Yeah.
I think this is also something that GOA is going to use to fill their coffers. So, I've already gotten 2 emails from them today asking for money. So there's, and don't get me wrong, they get this reversed and they do set a precedent. It's worth every damn penny. But, show me the money, or I guess do the work and then I'll show you the money.
Well, that's the thing with the GOA, unlike some other organizations, they're putting in the work. I mean, they are. GOA and the SAF and the FPC, they actually are putting in the work. There's other organizations that don't. Master Decoy in 1976 says, wait for it. The binary trigger will be next. It'll be the binary or the pistol brace, one of the two. And binary triggers are damn fun. I hope like hell somebody makes one for the Ruger PC charger. I mean, they've got it for the 1022 charger already. Someone mentioned they wanted it. 7 did. Because that'll take the standard Ruger 1022 binary, which I have in my 1022, and it's fun as hell. But yeah, I digress. Talking about those binaries, they're so damn fun. But the way ammo, I haven't had mine out in a long time though, because ammo. Even though it is 22, still ammo. That's a good way to burn a lot of it. Warsaw says, we lose battles and we win some. Yep, that's right. Jacob S. asks, I have a question. When you or other people who cover these legislation that is going on in the courts, how do we know if something is implemented into law or not? Usually they'll announce it. They'll announce whether it's a win-win, whether it's a final done, and then they'll give a date for when it takes effect or not. Particularly if it's actual legislation instead of litigation. In other words, if it's a law passed by the Senate, Congress, and all that stuff, there'll be an implementation date. But if it's like an injunction or if it's a final ruling in a court case, they'll give a date as to when it goes into effect, and they'll go from there. Go ahead.
I kind of have an answer for this.
Sure.
All right. If you're not a member of the GOA, FPC, or 2AF, get a membership. Give them your email address. Well, it's part of the signing up process. They will email
they'll tell you.
Stuff. They will tell you when something goes through, good or bad, if something's being worked on, in between the emails where they're asking for money. The NRA does that, but not to the extent that the other. I mean, they spam your inbox with emails, but they don't talk as much about legislation that's going on until they're fear-mongering to fill their coffers. You'll get 3 emails from Wayne LaPierre asking him for suit money, or you're entered into this contest to win a truck or a gun, but they need your money. And I will say that GOA, 2AF, and FPC haven't. I don't recall that they've automatically entered me into a sweepstakes to win something. So it's more than just supporting, fighting for your Second Amendment rights. It's also keeping you in the loop. Another thing is your state organization. Find out who your state organizations are. Join them. If you want to get a good deal on it, find out if there's going to be a 2A rally in your state. Your organizations may be there, and like here in Michigan, they'll offer an annual membership to the organization. Some of them will at a lower price if you sign up right there at the rally, as opposed to going online and signing up. So it's a way to stay in the loop. They'll send out newsletters, things like that. There's more to it than just your money going to fight these battles or to be a name on a petition when they go, look how many members we have, and all of our members vote. It's helping keeping you in the loop.
Second Amendment Foundation is saf.org. I put a link out in the chat. It's $15 a year, man. $150 for a life membership. You know, like I always say, skip McDonald's once or twice, and you've got the cost of membership to the Second Amendment Foundation. So, you know, one of the best $15 you can spend right now in the firearms world, because that's what, like 3 or 4 rounds of 9mm anymore? It seems like it. It's not quite that bad, but it's getting there, right? Jason Stewart says, why not make full auto legal again? It's not like anyone can afford the ammo. Yeah, you know, forget about the tax stamp. Paying for the ammo is going to be difficult.
Paying for the ammo when there wasn't the shortage was expensive. See, I got to shoot lots of full auto, but the taxpayers paid for it. Thank you, taxpayers. I appreciate that. It was so much fun. All the armor-piercing incendiary rounds, sending them downrange at high rates of fire.
Yeah.
When a young person asks me how they can afford a full auto, I say, just go down to your recruiter's office. They'll
give you one for free. So there we've had the court cases that are either wrapping up. Well, no, they're all still in the works, I guess. Because Young v. Hawaii, guarantee that's going to go to SCOTUS. Well, they'll petition SCOTUS for cert. We'll see if they grant cert, or whether they take this New York State case and that they rule on carrying outside the home based on that case. So we'll see how that goes. Pretty sure this Sixth Circuit court will, this Sixth Circuit decision with the bump stocks, that's going to go farther. I'm sure there will be some appeals and or other actions on it. It's not over yet. So don't break out the bump stocks if you happen to suddenly stumble across them. And we have the, what the hell was the other one? The Fourth Amendment case. We'll see how they rule on it.
And, you know, can I circle back
Sure.
to that Fourth Amendment case? Okay. So
Okay,
here's the thing.
Pasaki.
I was thinking about it, and you know, the guy, it's in his own home, so he can do what he wants, and nobody got hurt or anything else like that. And I don't think the government has any right to butt into your house unless you're truly hurting somebody or something like that. And even then, there's some gray areas. I'm not going to get into it, but the whole thing is, what he did was irresponsible and, well, for the most part, retarded. Putting a gun on the table saying, put me out of my misery. So I don't think that the police had the right to violate his constitutional rights. I don't think they have the right to lie and go into the house and take property and stuff like that. But on the other hand, this dumbass got what he asked for by behaving that way.
Yeah.
I don't support irresponsible behavior with firearms. Now, but that's in his house. That's in his house, and it's not my domain. It's not my business. It's not the government's business, in my opinion. What you do in your house is what you do in your house. If he was doing it outside of the house, I could see the government somewhat getting involved if he's in a public area and he's menacing, threatening. I mean, it's real, not some of that made-up crap that they do. But still, the fact that he did this and made a bad choice in who he decided to marry, because you can't trust her, he kind of got what he asked for. So
I can't deny that.
I'm gonna nominate him for Dumbass of the Week or whatever.
So he's a Moron of the Week nominee?
Yeah, he apparently has poor taste in responsible firearms ownership and poor taste in women. So he gets Moron of the Week. All I'm saying is the government will fuck up your Sunday. Do not give them any excuses.
You know what, Squib? I'll allow it. He is a write-in candidate for Moron of the Week this week.
Thank you,
we'll vote
sir.
on him later. Yes. So we've got these court things coming and still developing, and we'll definitely be keeping an eye on them. But we also have not just the litigation going on, we have the legislation going on, which the usual suspects are exploiting the atrocity in Boulder to try to make headway with. You know, they already had their universal quote-unquote background checks thing going on. They already had extending the wait list on the background, not wait list, but the extending the time period that the ATF has to and the FBI has to make these background checks and whatnot. Because currently, if they get a delay, the gun dealer can decide to proceed after 3 days. Well, they want to increase that. Then, of course, there's the assault weapon ban that Diane Frankenstein has introduced as usual. So they're really trying to make these things come at us. And again, they're using the whole Boulder thing as reason. They exploit any atrocity that they can. Well, let's go hop in to talk about this Boulder thing, because there's more coming out in the story. This is a piece from Fox News. Boulder, Colorado mass shooting suspect known to FBI. Yes, folks, that's right. This guy was already known to the FBI and already being watched by the FBI and already being investigated by the FBI. Ahmad Alaliwi Alisa, 21, has been charged with 10 counts of first-degree murder. The suspected gunman who killed 10 people in a mass shooting at a Boulder, Colorado grocery store this week was previously known to the FBI, according to a report. Ahmad Alaliwi Alisa, a 21-year-old from Denver suburb of Arvada, actually he was from Syria, was linked, which, by the way, it's kind of odd. We bombed Syria earlier, and now a Syrian immigrant, but, you know, don't want to get crazy here, right? Of Arvada was linked to another individual under investigation by the Bureau, the New York Times reported Tuesday, citing law enforcement officials. No further details were reported. I have heard, I read Jack Prosobiec, or whatever his name is, posted that the guy had ISIS leanings. I don't know. I cannot corroborate that. So if anyone can actually corroborate that, let me know, because I would love to know if that is indeed factual. Boulder police identified Alisa as the shooting suspect earlier Tuesday. He has been charged with 10 counts of first-degree murder and booked into the Boulder County Jail. Oh, look, he's on suicide watch. You can tell because he has this puffy green turtle suit on. So, yeah, they allegedly can't hang themselves with that thing. Aw, I pity the CO that has to sit there and watch him take a poop. Alisa had bought an AR-15 style rifle on March 16th, 6 days before 10 people, including a police officer, were gunned down Monday at a King Soopers grocery in Boulder, according to an arrest affidavit. It was not immediately known where the suspect purchased the weapon. One of the victims was veteran Boulder officer Eric Talley. The others were identified as Denny Strong, Nevin Stanisic, Ricky Olds, Trelona Barkowiak, Suzanne Fountain, Terry Liker, Kevin Mahoney, Lynn Murray, and Jody Waters. After the shooting, a woman who identified herself as the sister-in-law of Alisa told police she saw him playing with a gun that looked like a machine gun and took it away from him 2 days before the deadly rampage, the affidavit said. Investigators have not established a motive for the attack, said Boulder County District Attorney Michael Dougherty. Law enforcement and a former high school wrestling teammate have described Alisa as someone prone to sudden rage. When he was a high school senior in 2018, Alisa was found guilty of assaulting a fellow student in class, according to a police affidavit. Alisa got up in a classroom, walked over to the victim, and cold-cocked him in the head, the affidavit read. Alisa complained that the student had made fun of him and called him racial names weeks earlier. An Arvada police report on the incident said the victim was bloodied and vomiting after the assault. Alisa was suspended from school and sentenced to probation and community service. Angel Hernandez, a former high school wrestling teammate, said Alyssa got enraged after losing a match in practice once, yelling that he would kill everyone. Hernandez said the coach kicked Alyssa off the team for the outburst. He was one of those guys with a short fuse, Hernandez told the Associated Press. Once he gets mad, it's like something takes over and it's not him. There's no stopping him at that point. A law enforcement official briefed on the shooting said the suspect's family told investigators they believed Alyssa was suffering some type of mental illness, including delusions. Relatives described times when Alyssa told them people were following or chasing him, which they said may have contributed to the violence, the official said. Hernandez said Alyssa also would act strangely sometimes, turning around suddenly or glancing over his shoulder. He would say, "Did you see that? Did you see that?" Hernandez recalled, "He wouldn't see anything. Or we wouldn't see anything. We always thought he was messing with us." So this guy was under investigation by the FBI because he had ties to some other guy who was under investigation by the FBI. So that poses the question. Why in the fuck did they give a proceed for this son of a bitch to buy a gun 6 days before this happened when he was under fucking investigation? Why was there not a delay? Why was there not a do not proceed? Why did they say, "Oh yeah, sure, go ahead, let him have a gun"? Yeah, we're watching this guy because he might, according to rumor, have ties to fucking ISIS, or he definitely has ties to this shady sumbitch. Yeah, let's let him go ahead and have a gun. Sure, yeah, okay. Again, the FBI stepped on their dick, and who has to fucking pay for it? We do. Because, you know, here's this opinion. It's a really short piece, but it's relevant. This is from theconservativetreehouse.com. Here we go. FBI knew Boulder, Colorado suspect identity prior to shooting. Stop me when you've heard this before. The Boulder, Colorado shooter was named as 21-year-old Ahmad Alalawi Alissa earlier today. And then this gem from the New York Times. The suspect's identity was known to the FBI because he was linked to another individual under investigation by the Bureau, according to law enforcement officials. A reminder, 50 FBI agents were enlisted within the Trump-Russia investigation to push a narrative. 13 FBI agents were dispatched to Talladega Speedway to investigate a garage pull-down rope and push a narrative. Thousands of FBI hours have been spent investigating the January 6th Washington, D.C. protest, and once again, another terrorist carries out a mass shooting where the FBI knew the suspect in advance. The FBI knew in advance the Pulse nightclub shooter, Omar Mateen, and were tipped off by the local sheriff. The FBI knew in advance the San Bernardino terrorist, Tashfeen Malik. The FBI knew in advance the Boston Marathon bombers, the Sarnaev brothers, were tipped off by Russians. The FBI knew in advance the Garland, Texas shooters, Elton Simpson and Nadir Sufi. The FBI knew in advance of the Parkland High School shooter, Nicholas Cruz. The FBI knew in advance of the Fort Hood shooter, Nidal Hassan. And now the FBI knew in advance of Ahmad Alalawi Alissa. These are just off the top of my head. Anyone notice a pattern? Meanwhile, the political FBI agents chased the ghosts of mysteriously invisible white supremacists conducting random acts of unidentified racism. Gee. Maybe. Maybe. And hold on for a second, because I know that this is kind of a radical idea, so please bear with me. Maybe we don't have a gun problem. Maybe we have an FBI not doing their fucking job problem. Thoughts? By the way, welcome, Pickle.
Is it they're not doing
and
their
welcome,
job,
Warsaw.
or is it...
Go ahead, Pickle, I'm sorry.
FBI is not doing their job, or is it FBI is doing the job that's being secretly told to them by, I'm not, using, something like Dianne Feinstein, or not just like her in particular, but somebody very much like her, because it seems like, everything they've been, with all of these people that, we've been aware of these, but we haven't done squat, investigations, and then all of the other, we don't know squat about them, but we're going to dump a bunch of time into them. It seems like there's a certain lean, should I say, to how they do things. So it almost seems like there's somebody pulling their strings, in a particular direction.
What? Squib, Warsaw, thoughts?
My thoughts, I don't think we have a gun problem. I think we actually have a major crime issue. And not to mention, I think there's failure between the state and the federal government not taking action. And I can explain it because on Town Hall Media's YouTube channel was actually coming across a guy who was one of the fathers of the Parkland shooting. And he said that the state of Florida was actually held liable and responsible for the death of their daughter. Because the chain of command was actually at fault. Even though the school was at failure to tell the police, and the police forgot to, or didn't do anything to talk to the FBI. So yeah, I don't think we have a gun issue. I think we have a crime issue. Not to mention, we've normalized the crime that's gone on in Chicago for decades, and nothing has changed a damn thing about it. In other places like New York and California too. Detroit, that's another one on the list.
Seven Wonders says he loves how all the MSM, the mainstream media, was calling him white. Then when they found out he was Syrian, let's not mention his name. Yeah, that's yeah. I've thought that was special. Matter of fact, there's somebody who's a contestant on Moron of the Week later tonight because of that.
Well, not only were they, doing their damnedest not to mention his name, they were doing their damnedest, going back, editing articles, pulling down tweets, everything else that, mention anything about this guy ahead of time, to try to reduce the blowback.
Yep.
Yeah, but Budgie, do you agree with me? We've kind of normalized crime.
I think
like a thing where like Chicago is, for example, there's not a damn thing that's ever changed about it.
I think it's that they don't report it unless it fits the narrative. It's not necessarily that they're trying to normalize crime. It's that they're trying to push a political agenda, and the media is nothing really more than a propaganda arm of the left. And if it doesn't push the left agenda, they just simply don't report it. I'm actually planning to write an article and submit it to a couple places and see who publishes it about that very thing. Because as you'll see in the self-defense shout-out segment tonight, there is a shit ton of instances where people use guns in self-defense. But what are they focusing on? The one thing that happened this week that was sexy, and as Squib said earlier, it bled, so it led. And it has the virtue of pushing their agenda.
Well, also, here's another thing to add. I think it also has created more copycats in the field. Any news media, I think another shooter or a future person that could be doing that will actually be thinking, all right, I'm just going to do the same thing this person did. The media is actually also liable for creating copycats, in my opinion.
Yeah. Isn't that part of why, years ago, they, the media really started putting a hush-hush on, any kind of suicides, because they found that, reporting, significant reporting about suicides bred more in that area.
Yeah. Master Decoy says, hey, brother, don't stroke out. Oh, trust me, man, I'm being calm. I'm being calm. James Pellard's in the house. Billy the cab driver's here. Small Caliber Arms Review. Hey, how you doing, man? Michael B is here. Oddball Stuff is out there. Who else is here? Sorry if I haven't seen you out there. Haven't said hi. If Travis T's there, says quit holding back. Yeah, if I haven't seen hi, please forgive me. I'm busy trying to keep myself from stroking out.
You know who's probably laughing about this and actually wishing for more gun control right now?
Who's that?
The guy in England, I forget his name. The guy that Alex Jones was actually arguing with and debating years ago. I'm trying to remember his name. You guys know what I'm talking about?
No. I don't know who Alex Jones was.
Pull him up.
OBS says FBI can investigate that they're incompetent to protect. That's why we must be able to protect ourselves. The government mops up messes. They don't prevent them. Absolutely correct.
Piers Morgan. That's what I was thinking.
Oh, Pierce. Yeah, that. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, he's
Okay.
probably that sumbitch is probably laughing about every single atrocity that happens here.
You know what? His country is even far worse than ours. The criminals up the wazoo over in his area. And knife control is actually a thing that they have failed to even do as well.
Yeah.
People actually have died more by knives than a freaking firearm.
Oh, well, that happens here too. More people. Well, as far as rifles go, more people are. Just check up the Uniform Crime Report from the FBI, and you'll see that more people are killed with knives than are killed with rifles. Period. More people are killed with
Also,
fists and
think
feet
about-
than are killed with rifles.
Think about that. Think about how many pieces of slivers of metal that are across the country compared to firearms. I mean, we got to probably have over billions and millions of them at least. Think about that.
Every time we find out that this person was on an FBI watch list or under some form of investigation, and that didn't stop the NICS check, which is that's what it's supposed to do.
Yep.
Okay, an investigation or being on a watch list can be a temporary thing, can be a thing that you can, I guess you could say, get out of at some point when they find out you really are innocent. You just have somebody else's name, or you're associated with, but you're not part of it, or whatever. Let the investigation take place, etc., etc. Okay, but it's not working. So it's more evidence that NICS is a bunch of bullshit. But here's the thing. Why isn't every single time this can be traced back and the FBI failed to do their job, the director is not just fired, but fired with no pension, no severance, no nothing. Like they're blacklisted for life. Make an example out of every FBI director every single time this happens. I don't care if a president has to go through 15 FBI directors in a 4-year term. Something will change. Something will change if heads start to roll. You cannot retire them early and send them home with a pension and everything. No, you have to make them, and you might go, well, they're at the top. They don't necessarily know what some paper pushes down below. It doesn't matter. Truman said the buck stops here. When you're in charge, when you're the manager, the responsibility eventually falls on you. You can throw your people under the bus up to a certain point to cover your ass because they were doing something behind your back, but why were they doing something behind your back? It's a failure from the top on down. The president, no matter who they are, should be going on national TV every single time going, oh, FBI screwed up again. You're gone. See ya. But none of them do. None of them really do.
Yeah. Well, there's never any
it's not just
accountability.
Not even the state police either. Look what happened with Scott Israel, and that guy was held reliable. For
Yeah, he got rehired by
messing up
somebody
on those
else or
kids.
something.
Yeah, the arbitrator said he needed to be rehired.
That's the worst of it. Yeah.
Said that his due process was violated when they fired him.
Why do you think? Nobody wants to be around him or affiliated with him.
All right, where am I at? All right, well, so because of this garbage, well, not because of it, let me back up. So as I said, they're using this atrocity as a springboard to push forward their anti-gun agenda. And as part of it, the sniffer-in-chief, this is a piece from NBC News, Biden says Senate filibuster is being abused and must be changed. Remember, we talked in a single shot about, a couple of them. The last two about the filibuster and the Dems going after it. And yeah, I said Democrats because they're the ones doing it. The president again championed a talking filibuster and expressed willingness to go further if other options fail. President Joe Biden again championed a talking filibuster Thursday to make it harder for a minority party to block bills, and for the first time expressed willingness to go further in overhauling the rule. At his first press conference as president, Biden received numerous questions about the 60-vote threshold and said it is being abused in a gigantic way. He said the rules should be reverted to a talking filibuster, which was altered to a silent filibuster in the 1970s. You had to stand there and talk and talk and talk and talk until you collapse, he said, adding that eventually the talking ends and the Senate can proceed. I strongly support moving in that direction, Biden said. The president's remarks come as a large portion of his agenda are threatened by the 60-vote threshold in the Senate due to widespread Republican opposition in a chamber divided 50-50 between the parties. He said his goal is to find a way to negotiate and make progress on his goals. But he also indicated he might support going further if that fails. We're going to get a lot done, and if we have to, if there's complete lockdown and chaos as a consequence of the filibuster, then we'll have to go beyond what I'm talking about, Biden said. At this time, Democrats don't have the 50 Senate votes required to abolish the filibuster, with some prominent holdouts who support the effective supermajority requirement to pass bills. Biden said he intends to get things done consistent with his campaign promises and added, "I have never been particularly poor at calculating how to get things done in the United States Senate." Biden doesn't get a vote on the filibuster, but his position matters. It could be influential with moderate Democratic senators who are on the fence. And if the caucus is unified about abolishing or modifying it, then Vice President Kamala Harris would cast the decisive vote. Asked Thursday if he agrees with former President Barack Obama that the filibuster is a Jim Crow relic, Biden replied, yes. Republicans noted that the position is a reversal for Biden, who served in the Senate for 36 years and has a long record of defending the 60-vote rule. Senator Biden was a relentless defender of the filibuster. But now that President Biden looks in the mirror and sees FDR, he's keeping the door open for a complete 180 to blow up the institution he spent 4 decades defending, Senator Ben Sasse, Republican Nebraska, said in a statement. So, good old Sniffy is now saying, yeah, let's go ahead and change up the rules because, we're the ones deciding that, you don't want us to steamroll all over you. But he ain't the only one, of course, because old Chucky Schumer, he's in on this too. Those of you who are on the channel, on the panel, if you have another means to watch, probably want to, because this is going to be a few minutes of video we're going to be taking a look at here.
Oh boy.
This is from Breitbart. Schumer, we'll see how GOP votes on gun bills, but move forward we must. On Wednesday's broadcast of CNN Tonight, Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, Democrat, New York, stated that Republicans are going to feel the heat on gun control votes, and let's see what the outcome is. And again, we will figure out the best way to move forward, but move forward we must. Schumer said, Toomey says he's going to join. I'm not sure what he's proposing, and we want strong legislation. But they're feeling the heat, And the reason that McConnell was never going to bring bills to the floor was because he knew a lot of them didn't want that heat. Now they're going to get it. Let's see what the outcome is. And again, we will figure out the best way to move forward, but move forward we must. So let's go ahead and listen to this piece of shit's words from his own stinking cesspit of a mouth. You can tell I don't like Chuck Schumer very much, right?
Majority Leader Schumer joins me now. Senator, I thank you for joining. I should say Majority Leader. Pardon, I don't mean to disrespect. Thank you for joining us.
It's okay.
You were fired up today. What is your plan to get this voting legislation passed? Because Republicans are dead set against it.
Well, first, as I said, this is despicable. And for Mitch McConnell to say there on the screen that we are trying to change the rules, no. It's Republican legislatures across the country that could take away the rights, according to the Washington Post, of up to 10 million people. Mainly poor, mainly people of color, mainly Democrats, mainly urban, because they lost the election. I have rarely seen something that is so obnoxious.
He's talking about this voting rights legislation crap where they want to basically let anybody vote however, whenever, whyever, as many times as they want, whatever. The Democrat power perpetuation bill.
Noxious, despicable, and anti-democratic. You know what it reminds you of? Of being in an autocracy. A place like Erdogan's Turkey, a place like Orban's Hungary. And we are going to do everything we can to stop this. Yeah. Failure is not an option. This will not stand.
Listen,
And our caucus feels very strongly about this. Very strongly.
You said autocracy, but you talked about how laws in Georgia and other states smack of Jim Crow, and I'm quoting here, rearing its
Yes.
ugly head once again. Is there a way to protect access to the ballot without changing the filibuster?
Well, look, the public is totally on our side. There's going to be a national campaign about this launched by many groups, and our hope always is that Republicans will see the light. But if they don't, our caucus will gather and we will figure out the best way to change these rules, and everything will be on the table.
Now, hold on a minute. Didn't you just say that for McConnell to say that the Democrats wanted to change the rules was despicable? And now you're just talking about, yeah, we'll get together and see what the best way to change the rules is? You lying, hypocritical piece of shit.
As I've said before, failure is not an option. We cannot allow this to stand. And everything is on the table.
Listen, I want to talk about this and more, but let's talk about this, and then we'll get past it and discuss some other things. But I wonder, you said failure is not an option. How are you going to handle Senator Joe Manchin? Joe Manchin, he is against Democrats' voting rights, the bill as is. The House gun legislation, he won't kill the filibuster. A lot of Democrats see him as a major roadblock, but you also need him, not least, to remain in the majority.
Look, I think every one of the members of our Democratic caucus, without exception, regards this as despicable as what is happening. And when we come together as a caucus, if the Republicans don't join us and help us change these rules, I am confident that we will get them changed.
Yeah. I want to talk to you about something else that you're very passionate about. I understand that you have an announcement that you want to make tonight on this show. You're recommending 3 black nominees for top U.S. attorney jobs in New York. Tell me why.
Well, first, I am so proud to have nominated Damian Williams for the Southern District of the United States at the U.S. Attorney's Office, Breon Peace for the Eastern District, and Trini Ross for the Western District.
You know, we've got a lot of news going on. I have to ask you about the other big story,
Please.
which is Americans are sick of these mass shootings. Senator Pat Toomey proposed a compromise bill with Joe Manchin after Sandy Hook. Now he's saying it is up to you. Watch this and we'll discuss.
Sure.
A big part of this is going to be, to get started, is up to Senator Schumer. Does he want to have a chance at getting an outcome, getting the 60 votes, or does he just want to see something fail so that he can use it for political purposes? If he decides the former...
By the way, the R there after Toomey's name actually means rhino, by the way.
Then we really need to take a very hard run at this. I do think there is some support that wasn't there in the past. If he decides that he just wants to have a failed vote, why then there's no prospect.
Oh, the majority of Americans want sensible gun legislation, including enhanced background checks. My question is, though, how are you going to find some common ground and do anything on gun legislation?
Well, let me first say, we're in a different Senate. You know, after there was a horrible mass shooting, the 49 people, I believe it was, in El Paso, and then the shootings in Nevada, Mitch McConnell said, we're going to debate this on the floor and vote on it. And, of course, we never did.
That's because it's a shitty idea.
Democratic majority, with, frankly, myself as leader, those days are over. We are going to put legislation on the floor of the Senate.
In other words, they're going to run right over you and me, folks.
We are going to have every senator have to say where they're going to vote. They're not going to be able to hide anymore. They are not going to be able to hide.
Good. That way we can hold them accountable at the ballot box, assuming that we ever have a, honest election again.
And there are a bunch of alternatives. I believe in HR.
Particularly if they're able to cram this voting rights garbage down our throats and, let millions of illegals come to the United States and become citizens, and then they can vote too. And, wonder who they'll vote for.
8. That is universal background checks. It has overwhelming support, Don, of the American people. I think it's something like 90% of Americans and 80% of gun owners
You're a fucking liar.
support this. I was the author of the Brady Law.
As a matter of fact, name 3.
But unfortunately, there was no internet, so we didn't block internet sales. Gun shows then were places where you'd show off your 1939 Derringer. Now they're a place where where illegal guns are sold and they cascade into the country, guns that shouldn't be there. So
Kiss my ass.
we have to upgrade this law. And I am sitting down tomorrow with Senator Murphy of Connecticut. I will be talking to Senator Blumenthal as well. They are our leaders, and we are going to figure out the best and strongest path forward. There will be votes.
All right,
there
but
will
you're
be votes,
talking
and
about-
Toomey should know that.
All right, you're
Toomey should know that.
talking about Democrats, and you said it's a much different Senate than what he was talking about. But they like the way things are right now, and they simply can do nothing. They don't have to do anything. They can just sit and do nothing right now. So what are you going to do about that?
Well, the difference is, Don, no, they were able to sit and do nothing under McConnell because he, even though he promised, he totally backed off on that promise and never put any of this legislation on the floor for either debates or votes. There's going to be gun legislation on the floor with debates, with votes. We'll see. Our Republican colleagues, many of them know that they're on the wrong side of the issue. Where are they? They're not going to be able to hide. Maybe they will join us in legislation. Maybe they won't, and then we'll have to figure out.
Do you actually think there's a chance that a Republican will join you on gun legislation?
Well, Toomey.
The weak ones like Toomey.
He says he's going to join. I'm not sure what he's proposing, and we want strong legislation. But they're feeling the heat. They're feeling the heat. And the reason that McConnell was never going to bring bills to the floor was because he knew a lot of them didn't want that heat. Now they're going to get it. Let's see where the outcome is. And again, we will figure out the best way to move forward, but move forward we must.
And that's it, folks. That's our quote-unquote leadership. One of the things that we need to do, as I say every week, is we need to apply the heat of our own onto our legislators, onto our senators in particular right now, to tell them that this crap is not gonna fly at all. Not that, certain ones will pay any attention to us whatsoever. I get it. Because, we're just peasants anyway.
Has Eric Pratt discussed any of this? What we got to do?
Has what?
Has Eric Pratt?
I don't actually pay much attention to Eric Pratt.
Well, he was vocal at Virginia. We got to get vocal now in our federal area.
Well, yeah, we absolutely have to get vocal. We have to constantly be vocal. Remaining silent is just plain stupid. Speaking of just plain stupid. And now prepare yourself for another tale of stupidity in this episode of Moron of the Week. All right, folks, those of you who've been here for a while, you know what's coming. This is Moron of the Week. It's where I present certain people who have done stupid things, particularly as related to the Second Amendment, and we all get to vote on it to see who, quote-unquote, wins. First up is we're going to have the write-in from the Fourth Amendment case that is being heard in the Supreme Court right now. The gentleman, and I don't know his name, but the gentleman who brought forth the case, who got his guns taken when he was arguing with his wife, brought a pistol out and put it on the nightstand or the table and said, just go ahead and shoot me and put me out of my misery. Next day, came home because the wife left and went to spend the night in a hotel. Came home and the cops came because she called him, and he agreed to go get checked out. Go get mentally evaluated, even though he says, hey, I'm not going to do nothing. It was just stupid melodrama. Goes to the hospital. Meanwhile, the cops told him, yeah, we're not going to seize your guns. Just go get checked out. The cops contact the wife and say, yeah, we got to seize his guns. So she takes them to his guns. So that Fourth Amendment fart knocker is the first moron of the week. That was from a story earlier in the show. Let's look at this next one. This is from Fox News. CNN's Alison Camerata blasted for ignorant suggestion that gun shop owners probe mental health of customers. Not everyone is a psychologist, and not everyone is trained to deal with mental health, Dana Lash said, by Brian Flood. CNN's Alison Camerata left critics baffled on Wednesday when she suggested gun shop owners should attempt to diagnose the mental health of customers before allowing them to purchase a firearm, as some viewers didn't think she was taking mental illness seriously, and others thought her comments were stupid, ignorant, and elitist. The New Day anchor was discussing how to prevent mass shootings like the Boulder, Colorado massacre when she pondered why the shooter was allowed to purchase a gun. Why don't we go to the gun shop owners and say, do you think that this 21-year-old who comes in and wants an AR-15 style weapon, do you think he looks like he's going hunting with this weapon? Did you ask him, by the way, do you think people are chasing you? Do you ever hear voices saying that people are coming for you? Do they ever ask questions like that? Because this guy, it sounds like, would have answered yes, Camerata said. Conservative talk radio host Dana Lash, a staunch defender of the Second Amendment, said Camerata's comments are part of the reason why so many people with mental illness don't seek necessary treatment. We have a dangerous misconception about what mental illness is in this country, and the danger and the purposeful ignorance that people have towards it is endangering lives. It's endangering lives because there are people who don't want to be crucified with this stigma of being mentally ill, because it's assumed by people in the press like Alison Camerata that everyone who has a mental illness is a danger to themselves or others, which simply isn't true, Lash told Fox News. It is a really broad brush assumption of people who deal with mental illness, she added. We're preventing people from going and seeking the treatment they really need to rehabilitate and get better, get back to living life, because of ignorant remarks and ignorant assumptions like the ones demonstrated by uninformed talking heads on cable news networks. It's really infuriating. Lash also felt Camerata needed to educate herself on gun ownership before making outlandish suggestions. Not everyone is a psychologist, and not everyone is trained to deal with mental health, Lash said. You require some training for that. Gun shop owners already have the right to refuse service to individuals if they think they're shady, regardless of if they pass a background check. If Camerata would have ever purchased a gun, she would know this. Maybe she should go through that process of purchasing a gun or even just learning anything about firearms before opining on the issue. The View co-host Meghan McCain called Camerata's comments the most wildly stupid, ignorant, and elitist take she's ever heard on television when it comes to gun control. People who've never purchased guns don't know how seriously dealers take purchasers and their mental health. This is the last thing sellers want, McCain wrote. This is hands down the most wildly stupid, ignorant, and elitist take I've ever seen on TV on this issue. Lash and McCain were hardly alone, as Camerata's comments were quickly roasted on social media. Then it gives several tweets that are roasting the hell out of her. Goodness, quite a few of them. So, yeah, Alison Camerata is contestant number 2 on Moron. Go ahead.
How much you want to bet she's on some sort of antidepressant herself? How much you want to bet she's prescribed something for whatever reason?
Oh, I wouldn't doubt it. Wouldn't doubt it whatsoever. Next up is the New York Post editorial board. 23rd. 8 slain in Atlanta, now 10 in Boulder. Your town could be next. Can the nation finally do something about weapons of war on our streets? President Joe Biden called Tuesday for Congress to move immediately to ban assault weapons and high-capacity magazines. It's a start, though he'll have to reach across party lines for real this time, since some Democrats are as anti-gun control as the bulk of today's GOP. The New York Post does not see this as a conservative or liberal issue. It's an issue of life and death. Curbing guns is what led to New York City's 3-decade reduction in murders. And sadly, it's the dismissal of that progress that has led to a rise in shootings here. I would say it's probably the stop and frisk doctrine, but, hey, what am I talking about? And sadly, it's the dismissal of that progress that has led to a rise in shootings here. Outside the city, the toll of semi-automatic weapons is a sad litany of cities and schools. Newtown, Parkland, Aurora, Las Vegas. It's a national shame. We called on President Trump to act, and we'll happily support Biden in a fight for the needed changes. Polls show most Americans want this. What polls? Paid for by whom? What questions? How was it phrased? Where was the samples taken? Who was the sample? You can make a poll say any goddamn thing you want. It's the political establishment that is frozen. Wait, shouts the do-nothing crowd. The Atlanta and Boulder killers used handguns, and both seem to have major mental illness issues. How does this justify drastic action? In fact, the Boulder gun was an AR-15 style weapon with a pistol stock and a shorter barrel. Less accurate, but easier to conceal, and nothing that any civilian needs to own. Who the fuck left you in charge of what I need? We said before and we'll say it again. And sure, the nation also needs to do better on mental health, but beefed up background checks would help keep firearms of all kinds out of hands attached to unsound minds. Yeah, like the fact that the FBI knew about this guy and was investigating him and still let him go ahead and buy a gun. Sure. Ahmad Alaliwi Alisa bought his Ruger AR-556 just days before the Boulder slaughter. Robert Aaron Long bought his pistol just minutes before the Atlanta spree. Even a waiting period might have made a difference. And while not all mass shooters use long guns, let alone semi-automatic ones, that's been the favorite weapon of these killers for years now. Details vary in the slaughters at Santa Fe High School, Tree of Life Synagogue, the Garlic Festival, the Pulse nightclub in El Paso and Dayton and Virginia Beach, and Thousand Oaks. But the bodies keep piling up. And all the hate crime laws in the world won't do a thing to stop them. Well, you're right about that. When they enshrined the Second Amendment, the Founding Father one thing. But what civilian needs an AR-15? Well, I would say that the Founding Fathers couldn't have conceived of the internet or computers or radio or television or any of that shit either. But that's protected by the First Amendment. The technology may change, people, but the right doesn't. And the same applies to the Second. As we've said before, getting it done will require centrists to stand up in both parties to stare down their ban everything and ban nothing extremes. Start by writing an assault weapon ban that focuses on firepower, rate of fire, muzzle velocity, and so on. Then move on to tighter universal background checks, etc., reasonable waiting periods, and all the rest. And yes, oh yes, make it easier for families to get help for their troubled loved ones, first by taking away their guns, then by getting them the mental health services they need. Get started today before the next horror hits. Maybe if you people had a fucking clue what you were talking about, I might take you seriously. But you haven't got a fucking clue one. So, yeah.
Can I bring something up here?
New York Post editorial board, they're contestants in Moron of the Week. And yes, please, go ahead.
First,
because I got something I got to look up anyhow.
The Second Amendment applies to all arms. And also, last time I checked, civilians used to own cannons. You're worried about a frickin' .22 caliber rifle?
Yeah.
And number two, also, I think, last time anybody messed with the rate of fire, a citizen lost their lives because of that when they were in a gunfight and had to defend themselves. AKA California maglock buttons. So yeah, your gun control laws also kill people, by the way.
Well, what about the women who've been killed by people that they've had freaking restraining orders against while they were waiting to be able to get a gun?
Exactly.
That happens all the
and
damn
also,
time.
And here, you know what they say? It's always for the children. Yet they actually promote pro-abortion. I mean,
Well, they don't care about a kid until it gets popped out.
If you drag abortion into the gun control argument, you instantly lost the gun control argument. It's
Well,
separate.
yeah, that's
Leave
true.
It alone.
But it's a contradiction. All right, come on.
All right, kid, I've been doing this longer than you. I'm telling you. You bring abortion into the gun control thing. You've just done the hardcore right-wing propaganda bullshit that they claim that all we ever do. It's a separate issue. It has nothing to do with it, and you lose your argument every single time.
By the way, folks, I'm kind of stalling. I'm looking for something. I thought I had saved. I thought I had emailed to myself and apparently did not.
Don't look up statistics on Chicago because somebody out in the live chat will get all bent out of shape.
No, I'm not looking that up. I'm looking up this tweet by this this person wherein they, with on one hand, freaking one tweet talking about white males being terrorists and this and that and the other, and then the next is saying that, oh yeah, no, we can't mention this guy's name when it turns out he's a Muslim. And I can't seem to find the damn thing. I thought I had saved it, but apparently I did not.
Are you talking about the actual, like what channel and what reporter and what time and everything?
Yeah, the person that actually tweeted this crap. Yeah, no, yeah.
Yeah.
And who was it out there? Let's go. Master Decoy wants to know how often we do this. Every Friday night at 7 p.m. Eastern. Plus, whenever I decide that I might, want to get in on it, then I want to talk about something. I call it a single shot, and I'm liable to go live on that. Well, pretty much anytime. Oh man, I wish I could find it. Well, I can't find it, so I'm just not going to.
The point I was just trying to make is we're just living in an upside down world. Everything's all in contradiction with each other.
All right, folks. So we're just going to go ahead with the people we have right now. So we're going to go with the Fourth Amendment fart knocker, the guy that just put me out of my misery. We're going to go with Allison Camerata, and we're going to go with the New York Post editorial board. Pickle, who deserves to be the moron of the week the most?
I'll go with contestant number 2.
Allison Camerata. Squibby, who do you vote for?
That dickhead who was responsible with his own gun and has poor taste in women.
And Warsaw, who do you pick?
That's number 2.
Number 2, Allison Camerata. So that's up to you folks out there in the chat now. You tell me who deserves to be the moron of the week the most. The guy that said, go ahead and put me out of my misery and ended up getting his gun seized through police deceit. The wonderful Allison Camerata for her bit of stupidity. And the New York Post for being bloviating assholes who don't know what they're talking about. You let me know. Well, you already voted. I can't count your vote again. So let's see. Jay Monty says the second one, Allison Camerata. That's 3 for Allison Camerata, 1 for the first guy, and none for the New York Post. You know what? I'm going to vote for the New York Post because they got nothing. They have no clue what the hell they're talking about. Defense Dad agrees with me, says New York Post. Seven Wonders says Allison Camerata. Billy the Cab Driver says Allison Obamarata. Master Decoy says Allison Camerata. Buck says Allison Camerata. Well, she is pulling ahead. Hey, Warsaw, we're not Dominion voting machines, man. Once it's cast, brother.
Now, careful making jokes like that. They might sue you like they did Fox for all the quote-unquote slander.
What? I don't know what you're talking about. Patriot says Mr. Potato Head. Which one's that? And Gabriel, the Bloviators, get his vote. I'm assuming that means the New York Post. Defense Dad says, I'll pretty much always vote against reporters. That's funny. All right, folks, we got 7 for Allison Camerata, 1 for the Fourth Amendment guy, 3 for the New York Post. And I think that we're going to go ahead and call this for Allison Camerata. Is ColumbiaMissourian.com. This might be the same thing. I think that's actually the same thing, right? Sometimes I do that. I find it at different sources and then realize, oh shit, that's actually the same one. Yeah, it's the same one. So let's move on to this one. This is from WBRZ.com. Police. Man shot to death after forcing his way into Tigerland apartment from March 19th. Baton Rouge. Police say a Thursday, March 18th, night shooting resulted in the death of 35-year-old who is said to have forced his way into a Bob Pettit Boulevard apartment. According to representatives with the Baton Rouge Police Department, Morris Harvey Jr. was killed around midnight at 1315 Bob Pettit Boulevard. Police say Harvey forced his way into an area apartment and was shot multiple times. Harvey died at the scene, police say. According to the authorities, the person who shot Harvey was detained for questioning along with several other witnesses. An investigation into Harvey's death remains ongoing. Next up, from 10tv.com, man shot and killed after apartment invasion in West Columbus. From, when was this? March 20th. Columbus, Ohio. Columbus police say a 36-year-old man was shot and killed after a home invasion that happened early Saturday morning on the city's west side. The shooting happened just before 2 a.m. at an apartment in the 3400 block of Wilson Woods Drive, not far from North Wilson Road. When officers arrived, they found Alan McKinney shot on the ground and say he was unresponsive. He was pronounced dead at 2:07 a.m. According to police, 2 people who lived in the apartment said McKinney forced his way inside and was then shot. Once the investigation is complete, it will be sent to the Franklin County Prosecutor's Office to be reviewed. Next up, TheDenverChannel.com. Homeowner shoots, kills intruder. By Robert Garrison from March 21st. Police in Denver are investigating a homicide after they say a homeowner shot and killed an intruder. The shooting happened around 11 p.m. Saturday in the 2200 block of North Lafayette Street in the city's West Park neighborhood. Police said an adult male was shot and transported to the hospital, where he was later pronounced deceased. The Denver office of the medical examiner confirmed Tuesday Matthew Martinez, 31, died at the scene. His cause of death was from multiple gunshot wounds. No arrests were made. The Denver's district attorney's office will determine if charges will be fired. Let's see. This is from WB Home. It's from March 21st by WBTV web staff. Union County, North Carolina. One person was shot after he reportedly broke into a home in Union County early Sunday morning, according to deputies. Deputies say 2 people, one armed with a handgun, broke into an occupied home around 12:45 a.m. on Rock Hill Church Road. Once they got into the home, the resident of the home grabbed a rifle and fired several shots at the home intruders, according to officers. Deputies say one of the men went to Novant Matthews, suffering from a gunshot wound to the thigh area. The second suspect who broke into the home was identified as 29-year-old Aaron Elijah Ross from Charlotte. Ross was arrested and taken to Union County Jail on a charge of first-degree burglary. The other suspect remains hospitalized, but his injuries are not believed to be life-threatening. After he's released from the hospital, he will face similar charges as Ross, deputies say. No charges have been filed against the resident who fired the shots. This headline from KKTV says police investigating murder, but it ain't a murder. From March 23rd, Colorado Springs. Colorado Springs police are investigating a murder after a body was found Tuesday morning. Police say on Monday at 9:20 p.m. the Colorado Springs Police Department received a call of shots fired in the 2500 block of East Buenaventura Street. When officers arrived, they found a man and a woman who said the woman's estranged boyfriend contacted her, violating a restraining order issued probably after should be in there, a history of domestic violence. The estranged boyfriend reportedly began assaulting the man who was armed. While being attacked, the man reportedly fired several shots at the estranged boyfriend, who then ran away. The reporting party was unaware if the estranged boyfriend was injured in the shooting. Responding officers started a case report for a restraining order violation as well as stalking. They did not talk to the estranged boyfriend. On Tuesday morning, around 6:30, Colorado Springs police received a call from a neighbor in the same block of East Buenaventura Street. The neighbor reported a man lying face down in the snow and didn't appear to be breathing. Officers responded and found the dead man, who was the estranged boyfriend. So, yeah. Next up, I told you we had quite a few of them this time. This is from Q13Fox.com. 2 shot in suspected home invasion at Puyallup apartment complex. From 2 days ago. Puyallup, Washington. 2 men were taken into a hospital in serious condition after they were shot during a suspected home invasion and attempted robbery in Puyallup. According to Puyallup police, it happened around 10:50 p.m. Tuesday at Riverside Park Apartments on East Main Avenue. When officers arrived, they found a very chaotic scene with 2 people shot and multiple reports of people and vehicles fleeing the area. The 2 men who were shot, both of them men in their 20s, were found in different locations. One was near the 3100 block of East Main Avenue, and the other was on the Riverside Park Apartments property. Investigators say they believe the 2 men who were shot went to the apartment complex with another man to rob someone in a home invasion. The men were reportedly armed when they went into the occupied apartment through an unlocked door. The tenant, a 19-year-old man, was also armed and fired multiple rounds, police said. The tenant is cooperating with detectives. From KHOU.com, store worker feared for his life when he shot homeless man who was charging at him. Houston, this is from March 25th. A store worker told police he feared for his life when he shot a homeless person outside his business in Northwest Houston late Wednesday. The shooting was reported before 10 p.m. outside a discount corner store in the 6400 block of West 43rd. Officers arrived and found the man, age 30, on the ground with 2 gunshot wounds. He was taken to the hospital and is expected to survive. Lieutenant Wilkins with the Houston Police Department said the worker was not hurt. He's the one who called 911 after the shooting, police said. He was questioned by police at the scene. He told investigators he was taking out the trash when a person charged at him. At this time, no names have been released and no charges have been filed. NBC24.com, Toledo police investigating road rage gunfire near state line. From March 25th. Toledo, Ohio. Toledo police detectives are investigating a Wednesday night road rage that led to gunshots in West Toledo. According to a police report, around 8:15, officers responded to reported shots fired on the 5200 block of Monroe Street. Other officers went to another location just across the Michigan state line where one of the drivers, 25-year-old Justin Langlois from Sylvania, had parked his car. Langlois told police a road rage incident had occurred between himself and another driver who cut off his car and shot at it. Langlois also described that he had a concealed weapon and returned fire. His 2 children, ages 4 and 2, were in his vehicle when this happened. And last but certainly not least, this piece from NBC16.com. Authorities investigate shooting in Elmira. From March 25th. A Lane County man is in custody after police investigated an overnight shooting in Elmira. Around 3:30 a.m. on March 25th, the Lane County Sheriff's Office began receiving 911 calls from residents in the 24,000 block of Horn Road in Elmira who reported hearing loud yelling and shots being fired. A few minutes later, one of the female callers reported that a neighbor, identified as 34-year-old Elmira resident Brandon Coates, was outside her residence trying to force his way inside. The female caller, her husband, and their minor child were at home at the time. The female's husband armed himself with a handgun in order to protect his family, and a few moments later, Coates forcibly broke open the front door armed with a shotgun. Coates was shot by the caller's husband during the confrontation and held at gunpoint until sheriff deputies could arrive, LCSO said. Upon the deputies' arrival, Coates was transported via ambulance to a local hospital where he is being treated for what appear to be non-life-threatening wounds. The victims in the incident were physically uninjured and are cooperating with the investigation, police said. The investigation to this point indicates that Coates, for a yet-to-be-determined reason, fired several rounds from at least 2 firearms inside his residence and then went over to at least 2 neighboring residences, demanding to be let inside, Sheriff's Office said. The second neighboring residence is where Coates is alleged to have forcibly broke open the front door armed with a shotgun, resulting in the male homeowner shooting him, LCSO said. At this stage of the investigation, Coates is being held for burglary 1, menacing ×3, unlawful use of a weapon, and criminal mischief, and additional charges could result as the investigation continues. There is no known continuing threat to the community. So there we have what? 10 or so instances from this week alone of people using firearms to defend themselves. But does the media say shit about it? Are they harping all over it? No. Instead, they're going to harp on the sexy, bloody mass shooting. And yes, I said sexy on purpose because that's how they see it. Sexy, bloody mass shooting atrocity that happened in Boulder. And do you know why? Because number one, if it bleeds, it leads, although that could be said of these 10 stories. But most importantly, it furthers their anti-gun political agenda, whereas these 10 stories don't. So be careful what you listen to, be careful what you see, be careful what you hear, be careful what you believe, and be cognizant of how they are trying to manipulate you via controlling what information you hear. That's it for this week, folks. Thanks for listening. Thanks for being part of the conversation. I truly appreciate it. Speaking of thanks, I would like to thank my esteemed panel. Calaveras 32 Special, the Tactical Pickle himself. Is there anything you would like to leave us with, sir?
Just, saying it was a good show, and thank you for the invite.
Hey, no problem. No problem whatsoever. Warsaw, is there anything you'd like to leave us with, sir?
Warsaw had to drop out. Something came up.
Oh, okay. Well, go ahead and check out Warsaw Patriot, folks. Squib, is there anything you'd like to leave us with?
No, just thanks for the invite and thanks for bringing stuff to people's attention. I'm glad that you're covering the stories that the mainstream media is too cowardly to cover.
Well, I'm just fear-mongering. That's all. Hey, speaking of fear-mongering.
See you at the Union Hall, brother.
If you guys want to grab a certified 2A fearmonger sticker, send me an email at budgetgunsandgear@gmail.com. You can also get these if you don't vote 2A, you ain't 2A, and gun control is never about the gun, it's always about control. Yeah, there for my commercial whorism there. Or is it whorish commercialism? I think maybe whorish commercialism is better. But, yeah. Pay attention to what's going on around you, folks. Pay attention to how they're trying to manipulate you, particularly when they have political crap coming up, like the upcoming votes on gun control. Chucky Schumer was talking about making legislators feel the heat. Well, we need to light the fire ourselves, metaphorically speaking, of course. We need to send them a snail mail, email, telephone, telegraph, carrier pigeon, semaphore, smoke signals, bicycle messengers, anything that we have to do to let them know what we think, and never, ever, ever give up the fight. I'll see you guys on the next one.